Hey folks, it's Keith here. Today we're going to go on a little bit of a rant video. So strap in, sit tight. There's going to be a bumpy ride, folks. So recently, everyone's favorite controversial init manager slash operating system of its own, basically, SystemD has merged a pull request. Now, this news article comes from itsfoss.com, where it talks about SystemD's new feature brings age verification option to Linux. So for those of you who don't know, or people who don't live in the United States who probably maybe aren't really keeping up with this, basically a law was passed in California that will be effective next year that will require operating systems to verify the identity of the people using their operating systems, so that it says right here, as defined, to provide an accessible interface at account setup that requires an account holder as defined to indicate the birth date, age, or both of the user for that device, for the purpose of providing a signal regarding the user's age bracket. Now, a lot of people, a lot of lobbyists are saying this bill is to protect the children. I don't think so. I think this bill is a very clear violation of users' privacy, and I think it's insane that this bill got passed. Hopefully, this gets overturned, but basically, a lot of operating systems, a lot of open source operating systems are kind of trying to figure out what to do, move forward here. Now, to be very specific here, this doesn't really affect Linux because Linux is not an operating system. Linux is technically a kernel. Just like Richard Stallman would say, Linux is a kernel, and the GNU core utils or whatever Rust core utils, whatever core utils you use, the tools that bring everything together, that's what then makes it sort of a real system. And when you package all that up in a distribution such as Fedora, Ubuntu, Arch, stuff like that, then it starts to form what you would consider an operating system, at least by my definition. So this really isn't a concern with the Linux kernel because the Linux kernel is just a kernel. But this is a real concern for distributions. You know, there's been a lot of talk on the Fedora forums, Ubuntu forums. Users are kind of discussing this, saying, hey, what are we going to do moving forward? And SystemD now has merged a pull request that, and we're going to follow the GitHub here, add birth date field to JSON user records. Now, I'm going to say right now, a lot of people are taking this situation out of context and they're way overblowing this and they're being a bit dramatic. People love to hate on SystemD. I have mixed feelings about it. I joke about how big it is because SystemD is way more than a init manager. SystemD can, connect to your Wi-Fi. You can use it to, do DHCP. It does a lot of crazy things that you wouldn't think a init manager does. But it's designed to sort of give you a lot of tools out of the box at time of startup to do all kinds of crazy things. There's a lot of people that harp on SystemD, and I get it. It is a big piece of software. It's not compatible with BSD and stuff, so it kind of deters very far away from the Unix philosophy, and I get why that would upset people. Me personally, I'm mixed. I like using SystemD in many cases, but I do understand where sometimes it's just a bit much. So a lot of people are taking this situation in context and saying, "Oh, SystemD will require people to verify their age before you." That is not what's going on here. So SystemD has added an ability for worst case scenario here. They have added this functionality that will allow SystemD to essentially prompt for information and then relay it to XDG desktop portal, which is information that a lot of desktop applications would use. So the idea here is SystemD will be able to prompt the user for that information at the operating system's discretion or however it's functioned, and then store that as part of the authentication process. so that other applications can then use that to say, okay, has this user's age been verified? Yes. SystemD is not making it so that, okay, I want to start an HTTPD daemon, and it's going to say, okay, well, how old are you? It's not for that. It's just for when the situation arrives, because next year these laws take effect, people. So if this stuff isn't overruled by next year, um, there's gonna have to be a way for Linux distributions to verify a person's identity at the operating system level. You can't really, like, you can say, like, okay, well, before they download it, they can verify their age then. Yes, but this happens at the operating system level this way with systemd, so that if a user goes to boot up the system, it asks for that information then, and then the user can enter it, and then it's the it's done. I don't like this. I mean, I don't like the fact that everybody is playing along. I mean, I know that this is just here because it needs to be, and that's the unfortunate reality of this. This is almost like a necessary evil that this pull request was done and merged. It has to be there because next year, if a lot of these operating systems aren't complying, they're talking about fining people. They're talking about finding people, and I'm actually going to switch to Colorado here because Colorado, there's a lot of people lobbying. You got 4 prime sponsors here who are trying to push this bill through Colorado and make it also a law then, and they're talking about finding people civil penalty of not more than $2,500 for each minor affected by each negligent violation. How ambiguous can you be? How are you violating a minor negligently by not asking their age? That's crazy to me. Like, what does the operating system have to do with that? It just doesn't make sense to me. It blows my mind. And then they're talking about, or not more than $7,500 for each minor affected by each intentional violation. The penalty is assessed and recovered in a civil action brought by the Attorney General. Crazy. Crazy to me. How do you say that a minor has been violated by an operating system, and that operating system creator needs to pay Fedora Foundation or Ubuntu Foundation needs to pay us for this grievous, clear violation? To me, that is crazy. I just can't believe we're living in an age now where we're claiming that stealing people's information and forcing them to give up information and forcing it upon software that is completely neutral and has nothing to do with it's not even particularly American. I mean, Linux, is I believe Linus Torvalds is Finnish. I mean, that all started, by a Finnish programmer. And there are people from all over the world contributing to this project. So how do you force people that use distributions into giving up their information? This is not to protect children, people. This is a straight up way to force companies to get information from you. That is all it is. It is a staggering violation of privacy, in my opinion, and I think it's disgusting. And I think there's no real way to get around this at this point except for pushing back legislation-wise and undoing this, which I don't know. The way California is, I don't think that's going to happen. And the way Colorado is, I think this law is probably going to pass. And there's been a lot of companies like Meta who have been, and OpenAI as well, that are sponsoring, putting tons of money into this and trying to really push this really hard. So you've got a lot of big companies, a lot of big players that are sort of really forcing this stuff down your throat. And it's unfortunate. I think moving forward, the only real thing you can do is to just focus on being anonymous. I have no problem being open on the ClearNet. When I started using the internet, I'm 30 now. I started using the internet when I was about 14, 12. I didn't have a computer younger than that. To me, just being able to browse the internet and just seeing this sea of information and this sea of knowledge and YouTube and all these crazy things and learn all these crazy things, it really opened my eyes to a world bigger than what was inside of a trailer that I was living at. You know what I mean? To me, it gave me this sense of wonder, and it sort of opened my eyes to the rest of the world. And that, anonymous ability is being stripped from it. I mean, even back then when I used it, there were like cookies, there's always been cookies that track like basic data, browser data. And since then, and it's just turned into an apocalypse scenario, an apocalyptic scenario for users' privacy, where nowadays you go on a site and it wants to know your location, it wants access to your microphone, it wants access to your webcam, and it's like, buddy, I'm just trying to buy vegetables on Amazon. You know what I mean? Like, why are you asking that? Just click the page. Why are you asking for that now? I mean, placed an order. But that's how it is nowadays. It's every single site you go on wants to send you notifications, wants to send you this, wants to send that. You click an ad, it tracks you. They call it a pixel. And it's just it's crazy the world we live in nowadays, where everything's about analytics, and the most valuable thing is your information, which is why they want it. Your information is valuable. Of course they want your information. It's what turns the world around nowadays with this crazy world we live in, guys. And it's just a really, really sad thing. And they just can't even justify it. Like, how do you say that a child's right was violated by downloading Fedora Linux, right? That doesn't make any sense. But oh, they didn't ask for his age, so they're violating the law. Make it make sense, people. Does not make sense to me. Absolutely ridiculous. So I'm not happy about this. This has been I've told you guys from the start, this was going to be a big rant video. Unfortunately, I don't know what to do moving forward. The only real thing I would say is, you got to use more anonymous networks, stuff like Tor, GNU-net, IPFS, I2P. There's also like a network called Yggdrasil, the Tree of Life, stuff like that, that are systems that don't inherently take information from you. That's what you got to do moving forward. Even if you're not a big privacy person, like, again, I have no problem, browsing the ClearNet, but I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to feel uncomfortable. I'm at the point where, I use Windows for my gaming PC, and it's just like it's shoving, you got AI in front of it, and you just got all these things that are collecting and mining you in the background that you don't even know about. And it's just at the point where it's getting really, really uncomfortable to browse the ClearNet. It's a rocky road where just everywhere you look, there are people's information getting stolen. And that's the thing that upsets me most about these bills, okay? They want your information. They want to know who you are, where you live, what you are, whatever information is relevant. But the moment a company leaks that information, so say, they get hacked, or an ex-employee gets mad and steals the databases and leaks them and sells them on the darknet, which is a thing that happens daily to millions of people, there is no repercussions for that. So you want me to hand over everything I have to you, but you're not promising to keep it safe. You're not compensating me for when my information is violated, and there's no repercussions for you if those circumstances happen. Crazy to me. It is so one-sided that it is so against the user that it's downright disgusting and disrespectful to pretend that it's to protect children, because it's not the case. It's a horrible law. It's terrible, terrible. And people think that VPNs will protect them. VPN, folks, it is not really to help you that much. It's not going to help you this much in this situation, because the thing about VPNs is, yes, VPNs will hide the originating connection. So say you can say you're in Russia, or you could say you're in China, you could say you're in Canada, but what does it matter if you're ultimately going to be logging into an account with an email address that's known to be you, and you're paying with a credit card that has your name on it? And it's just sort of these things where VPNs provide some privacy, and in some applications they work, but they are, to get around geo-blocking, but they are not an end-all be-all solution. VPNs will not keep your information safe. That's what these companies tell you when they sell it to you, but is a lie. The only real way to be secure on the internet is to completely, from the bottom stack, You know, you're here, you're browsing the internet, you're here, you're so far removed from the underlying technologies that you cannot possibly be anonymous, because if these underlying, you know, if the operating system, the underlying system has violated you and taken your information, it doesn't matter what you do up here, because you know, at the very bottom, you've already been identified. So the only real way to get around that is to use things like Tor on top of Tails OS, and to use other operating systems that are from the get-go, from the very second they start, they value your privacy. And you know, and there's other things like I2P. You have to like basically change the entire stack of software that you use, and you have to use an entire stack of software that from the very get-go anonymizes you. That from the very get-go does not ask you personal information, does not prompt you, does not call home to whatever you know, nationality the software is. You know, think like Chinese spyware, stuff like that, or Russian botting, stuff like that, that where you use it and it claims to be private, but then you check your logs and it's sending information to here, and it's like, why is it going there? You know, and then you block it and it doesn't work, and it's like, okay, maybe we not use that software. But yeah, it's just crazy to me that you're at the point now where it's almost a scary thing to view the ClearNet and to just browse the standard internet as it appears, because it's just so designed to mine your information. You know, just going on here and just me using Chrome and going on these different websites, you know, I get ads to me every single day about different things, and it's just crazy, folks. We really got to do something about this. We really got to get somebody who can, you know, charge forward, undo these ridiculous legislations, and put privacy back on the internet, which is where it belongs. You know, the internet is not designed, well, it's not that it's not designed, but it has been bolstered and Frankensteined into this horrible way to just extrapolate more and more information from you and sell it, and no real repercussions if it affects you negatively. If someone, you know, if Google accidentally leaks your home Wi-Fi password and people get into your network through that and completely wreak havoc, oh well, right? There's no repercussions for that. And that's what I want to see. These legislations attack the user, attack providers of open source operating systems like Fedora, Ubuntu. If this was only a Microsoft thing or an Apple thing, who cares, right? Because those are already kind of platforms that collect enough information. But the fact that it is attacking operating systems that are inherently you know, don't track you, and they're almost like forcing them to start doing something that's against what they you know, should even be doing. It's crazy to me. You know, Linux has always been a system where you put a name in, you put a password in, and you're in, right? It doesn't care about who you are because that's not relevant. It's a multi-user operating system. You could be whoever. It doesn't matter. It's not relevant. You're just another user in a machine. And yeah, it's just disgusting to me, guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I want to hear from people that maybe aren't from America as well. I want to hear from people that are maybe in a different country who has similar laws or don't have such similar laws. And I want to hear how that sort of affects, you know, if you are a country under similar laws where you have to give a lot of your information out to use the internet and stuff, how does that affect you day to day? And what are some of the ramifications for that? I'd love to hear that, because I'm always interested in hearing what other people go through to access the internet, and kind of the humiliation ritual that they have to go through. But anyway, the SystemD thing, you know, to kind of bring it all full circle, I don't necessarily think that, you know, that the SystemD thing is even a big deal, because even here it says, I might have even misspoke earlier, an optional field in the UserDB JSON object. It's not a policy engine, not an API for apps. We just define that field so it's standardized if people want to store the data there. It's entirely optional. They're really, really not doing much, you know, with that information. I don't think that you know, SystemD is doing anything inherently evil here. I think a lot of people are exaggerating it. You know, they're just trying to provide a solution for when this stuff becomes mandatory. But let's hope, folks, that in the future, this stuff all just gets abolished and we don't have to live under this crazy apocalypse of violation of our information. So that's going to be it for today, folks. Hopefully the next video is more positive. I definitely got to get off the internet a little bit today, take a walk outside, clear my mind, and take the tinfoil hat off maybe, although I think I left it in the kitchen, and just kind of cool off. But yeah, guys, I mean, let me know what you folks think about these ridiculous laws and how we can combat them. Stay safe on the internet, folks. Protect your information at all costs. Signing off.